Hello and hello. Thank you so much for joining me today for what's going to be a very sad video, undeniably. I'm a little scared to even react to this. This sounds very sad. But you guys requested it. I'm sorry. Someone requested it in my video the other day. I'm sorry I didn't write down your name. But it's the Eschede Disaster because there was, just a train crash the other day in Germany, which I thought was pretty wild. You guys said, well, you got to check out the Eschede. Let me look up how to say this word. I've never seen a town that you search on Google and the first image is of a blow-up slide. Population 5,000. Very tiny. That explains why the biggest attraction is a slide. And it's not even a permanent slide. It's a temporary blow-up slide. Anyway, what am I doing? The town is so small, I'm trying to tell Google, ask Google how to pronounce it, and it's saying, I think you mean this town in the Netherlands. No, I don't. There's literally there's no results. I guess I'm going to have to use my German knowledge, guys. It is called Eschede. And it's a freaking disaster. A train crash at 120 miles per hour. Sorry, that's just really fast. Oh my God. It's fascinating horror. I'm actually a fan of this channel. They do a great job. Check them out, link down below. I've seen them before. All right, let's do it.
On the 3rd of June, 1998, a family
So almost exactly 27 years ago.
travelling on the high-speed train from Munich to Hamburg were shocked when a sharp strip of metal shot up through the floor of the train, embedding itself in the armrest between two seats.
What?
The occupants of the carriage fled along the train, with one of them hurrying to fetch the conductor.
What?
They may have felt relieved to have so narrowly avoided injury, but could not have known that as the train raced onwards towards its destination, they were just minutes away from one of the worst rail disasters in Germany's history.
Oh my God.
Germany has an extensive network of high-speed rail lines which are served by specially built trains that can travel astonishingly fast. While ordinary passenger trains travel at speeds of under 160 kilometers or under 100 miles per hour, German high-speed trains on some lines are capable of traveling at 300 kilometers or 186 miles per hour. High-speed trains first began running in Germany
That's insane.
in 1991. Japan had already developed high-speed rail with the Shinkansen or bullet train.
And I do want to make it clear that I do understand. You guys were telling me about how, riding on a train is basically the safest form of transportation. I think it was 50 times less deaths, per person, per rider, compared to driving.
And Italy and France had soon followed suit.
Maybe more than, actually, no, not 50 times. It was I don't know. I won't make something up. It's way, way safer.
With
obviously.
high-speed rail lines of their own. High-speed rail travel was generally seen as a boon for the economy. It was safe, relatively inexpensive for passengers, environmentally friendly when compared with other forms of transit, and above all, fast. Germany's high-speed trains were referred to as Intercity Express or ICE.
I don't know why I've never looked up what ICE stood for.
CE train.
I've always wondered. Intercity Express.
And were run by the state railway company Deutsche.
Here's a stupid question. Why is that acronym in English? Or does the German words happen to also start with ICE for Intercity Express? Intercity Express. Intercity Express, known as ICE. So it is just an English word, Intercity Express. I'm on the German Wikipedia. I put the DE. I don't know if there's any difference in the German Wikipedia. It still says Intercity Express. Okay, whatever. That's just kind of weird to me, but okay.
barn. In their early years, most passengers reported a generally positive experience. But there was one issue that many noticed. When travelling at high speeds on ICE trains, there would be a great deal of vibration, enough to cause knives and forks in the buffet car to rattle noisily, and glasses to move across the table of their own accord.
See, I've never rode a train, so I don't know if that's like weird or not. I wouldn't know. I'd be like, I guess I would be like a little bit concerned if stuff started vibrating. Because, I mean, I feel like it's kind of like engineering 101. Not that I ever took engineering 101, but if shit starts vibrating, then over time, that's going to cause some stress on different things, you know? That's not good if stuff is vibrating.
The cause of this vibration was found to be the wheels. They were of standard monoblock design, where each wheel was cast as a single complete part.
Okay.
When in use, these wheels would wear down unevenly, something which, over time, resulted in vibrations that were transmitted up and into the carriages on which the wheels rode. To solve this problem, the wheel design was changed. The monoblock wheels were replaced by wheels that had several components: a central core, a metal tire that wrapped around the outside of the wheel, and a rubber damper
Is the metal tire what went up into the carriage?
between the two to reduce vibration. This type of wheel design had been successfully used on trams for many years. Engineers working for Deutsche Bahn calculated that these wheels would still be safe and functional at the much higher speeds of the ICE network. Tests were carried out, but some tests were cut short as Deutsche Bahn executives were keen to roll out the new design and resolve the vibration problem as quickly as possible. Once they did so in 1992, the new wheel
It's never good to cut tests short for something that's traveling 120 miles per hour.
design completely solved the vibration issue and appeared to work well for several years without any significant problems. In 1997, Ustra, a company responsible for running the trams in Hanover, noticed cracks in the wheels of some of their vehicles. While the components of any machine will wear down over time, these cracks were appearing much earlier than they had expected. Ustra quickly replaced the affected tires and adjusted their maintenance schedules so that tires would be replaced much more often, before cracks had any chance to form. Ustra also informed Deutsche Bahn of their findings, as they were aware that the same type of wheel was in use on high-speed trains. However, as Deutsche Bahn had
That's even more concerning on a high-speed train.
not noticed any similar problems on their high-speed train wheels, no action was taken.
Goddamn. Well, there you go. There's the mistake, I guess. It's unfortunate they actually had some forewarning to this. You know, so you can't just say, oh, this was inevitable. Because even a moron like me can say, guys, the second a crack happens in a wheel and we're going 120 miles per hour, it's not like a tram. You know, it's not like, oh, a cracked wheel, whoops. It's going to crack and that's not good. That's not good. It's going to be a disaster, potentially. Maybe I'm just using 20/20 hindsight.
On the 3rd of June 1998, an ICE train was traveling from Munich to Hamburg.
I can't help but say, do you guys have any clue what I mean when I say 20/20 hindsight? Here in America, I don't know what kind of metrics you guys use for eyesight, but here, it's like, I actually don't really get the system. It's 20/20 means you have perfect eyesight. 20/40 is not good. 20/60, even worse. But 20/20, that's perfect.
At 10:30 a.m., it departed from the station in Hanover, the final intermediate stop before its destination. A little less than 20 minutes later, a powerful jolt rocked the first passenger car, and a sharp piece of metal exploded up through the floor, intruding into a compartment where passengers were seated.
That would have killed somebody, huh? If it had been into a seat.
Passenger Jörg Dittmann was sitting with his family directly above the place where the piece of metal entered the carriage. Indeed, it pierced the armrest between his wife and his son.
Jesus.
Jörg and his family quickly left their compartment and moved to the next carriage, while Jörg went to find a conductor. He found one in the third coach and quickly explained what he'd seen. Following his training, the conductor said that he would take a look at the damage. Per company policy, he could only initiate an emergency stop of the train after he had inspected the problem.
God dang it. That's why you need to let the conductors use a little bit of discretion, you know? Having rules like that, where it's just black and white and you treat people like they're computer programs, just always ends in a disaster. It just always does.
He and York
Yeah, across all sorts of things. It's just like, no. If a piece of metal flew up through a carriage, it's time to stop the train. You know? We don't need to look.
returned to the first carriage, noting on the way that the train had begun to sway alarmingly as it raced along the rails at around 200 kilometers or 124 miles per hour. Just as York was about to point the conductor to the damage, the train violently derailed.
How do they even know this happened? I assume they died.
Derailment began with the third car. The front motor car and passenger cars 1 and 2 survived.
Wait, it happened with which car? Sorry?
And with the third car.
The third car.
The front motor car and passenger cars 1 and 2 survived intact, but the third carriage derailed and hit a bridge which passed over them.
But they're obviously connected, so how did that happen? It just like ripped off, like the third car ripped apart from the second car?
The track. The impact caused the bridge to begin to collapse. Car 4 was able to pass underneath the falling bridge before riding up into an embankment and crashing into some trees. Part of Car 5 and all of Car 6 were crushed by the falling bridge, compressed in places down to a height of just 6 inches.
Oh.
The subsequent cars piled into the wreckage at full speed, derailing and crashing into one another so violently that 8 carriages ended up occupying the same space that had, just moments ago, been occupied by one. 2 Deutsche Bahn railway workers who had been attending to a
Oh my God, look at that.
job underneath the bridge were instantly killed. Many of the passengers on board met a similar fate. While passengers in the first few cars, those
So that looks like the front car. Holy shit.
that passed under the bridge before it collapsed, lived, the vast majority of those further back in the train stood little chance of survival. Locals from the nearby town of Eschede were
Eschede. What did I say? Eschede. Eschede.
drawn to the
Eschede.
scene by the sound of the crash, with emergency services arriving just a few minutes later. More than 1,000 emergency workers converged on the crash site, including the police and the army. Around 40 emergency physicians were attending a conference nearby and travelled to the site to provide emergency care for the wounded. The rest
That's a nice thing. That's really serendipitous. It's like, yeah, I don't know. That's cool.
rescue operation
That's a very, when there's a disaster like this and so many people die, it's hard to say, oh, what a miracle. But for what it's worth, that's a nice thing.
was a challenging one. There had never before been a serious accident involving an ICE train, and as such, none of the emergency workers had ever worked on one before. Now, as they tried to cut seriously injured people free of the wreckage, they found that the train's pressure-resistant windows and doors were extremely difficult to cut through.
That makes sense.
87 people were treated for serious injuries, with many ferried to hospital by helicopter. In total, out of 287 passengers and 8 crew on board the train, 101 people died in the crash.
Jesus.
Jörg Dittmann and his family
Oh my
escaped
God, what a disaster.
without serious injury, as did the conductor that Jörg informed about the damage to the train. At the
That's how
time,
they got the tail. It's not like stopping it. I wonder how much time there was between him first notifying them and it derailing, because obviously it's going 100 something miles an hour. It can't just stop on a dime. I get that. Could have at least slowed down, that would have. Well, maybe it wouldn't have derailed if it was slowing down. Who knows?
Speed rail in Germany had a reputation for being safe and efficient. The crash was, therefore, an immense shock, especially as no accident of comparable seriousness had yet taken place on high-speed networks anywhere in the world.
Well, it seems really, really unfortunate that it crashed into a bridge and the bridge collapsed. If it had just derailed at a different section of track, it might not have been as catastrophic.
The Fraunhofer Institute for Structural Durability and System Reliability, or Fraunhofer LBF, carried out the investigation into the cause of the crash. The sequence of events as determined by the Institute was this. The piece of metal that had been thrust up into the compartment occupied by Jörg Dittmann and his family had in fact been part of the metal tyre that covered one wheel of that carriage. After having been worn down over time, the tyre had broken, with some of the remains being propelled up into the carriage. The remains of the tyre were stuck like a spear through the floor of the carriage.
Wow.
The tail end of it dragged on the ground below.
Wow.
As the train passed over a set of points, the tail end of the embedded tyre made contact with the points, wrenching them out of alignment and partially derailing that set of wheels.
I guess once you get just a little bit of derailment, it's over. It's like a domino effect, it just exponentially becomes worse. It's not going to get better, I imagine.
The train continued along the tracks with one set of wheels partially derailed, causing the swaying motion that some passengers had noticed just before the crash. As it approached another set of points, one partially derailed wheel made contact with the points and altered their position, effectively changing the orientation of the points as the third car was passing over them. The rear wheels of the third car and every car which followed it were directed down a different track from the front motor car and cars 1 and 2. This caused car 3 to turn sideways and derail completely, smashing into the overpass and beginning the disaster that destroyed the rest of the train. It was found that there had been many opportunities to avert the accident. In 1992, Fraunhofer LBF had warned Deutsche Bahn of the possibility of tyres failing on high-speed trains. Likewise, in 1997, the tram company Ustra had also raised concerns about the durability of the wheels. Deutsche Bahn had acted on neither of these warnings.
How is it legal to not act? I wonder how many times companies like this type of thing happens where a company will be warned of something, but then nothing ever happens, like maybe DB was warned about all sorts of things, but nothing ever came of it. I don't know.
Further, it was found that the routine inspections of wheels had been carried out visually, using flashlights to look for cracks or signs of stress. Equipment specifically designed to detect metal fatigue was available, but was not used because this equipment was seen as being too sensitive, with a history of delivering what the company believed to be false positives. In the weeks leading up to the crash, complaints made by travellers of excess vibration on board some of the cars involved in the crash had been logged but not thoroughly investigated. Leading up to the crash, complaints made by travellers of excess vibration on board some of the cars involved in the crash had been logged but not thoroughly investigated.
Interesting. Even though that was the whole reason they got the new wheels to begin with.
The conductor who had not stopped the train was questioned, but later absolved of any blame.
It's not his fault that the policy was stupid.
He had correctly followed procedures that he had been trained in. His job was primarily customer service, and he did not have the technical background to know whether emergency stop procedures were appropriate or not, or the standing within the company to change them if they were inappropriate. Deutsche Bahn accepted responsibility for the accident. A set amount of compensation was paid to the families of all those who had died or been injured, and further claims against the company were all settled out of court. 3 employees of Deutsche Bahn, whose roles meant that they had some direct responsibility for the accident, faced criminal.
Is this like a little scale model remake of the crash, I guess?
Charges. All 3 cases were
Oh, I think it says it was used at the trial up there. The stupid title's in the way, so I can't see.
responsibility for the accident faced criminal charges. All 3 cases were
Yes.
resolved with a plea bargain after a lengthy trial. The case was dismissed, and each of the accused ordered to pay a fine of €10,000. Many changes were made to the German rail network in the aftermath of the Eschede rail crash. Firstly, wheels on all high-speed trains were replaced with a monoblock design. The entire network was assessed to identify any other places where track points were situated just in front of bridges or other obstacles. And these points
I wonder what a track point is. I'm not, like, does seem pretty integral to what went wrong here. Track point train. I just don't know what that is. A mechanical device on a railway that allows trains to be guided from one track to another. Ah, this thing, a switch. It's like, you know, if you're going this way and you got 5 people here and 1 person here, do you switch it? That thing.
were, in most cases, moved. The pressure-proof windows and doors that had resisted cutting during the rescue operation were replaced with windows and doors that could be released or broken easily in the event of an emergency. A memorial to those who died in the crash was established in 2001. In a field close to the crash site, 101 cherry trees were planted.
Okay, I was going to say this is kind of a lame memorial, but okay.
In a field close to the crash site,
That's a beautiful thing.
101 cherry trees were planted.
That would be very chilling to go past that on the train. That is so sad.
One for each person who had passed away. The names of the deceased are carved into a stone wall, and at the far end of the site, a stone staircase leads upwards to nowhere, ending in empty space.
Wow. Damn, that actually gave me chills. Whoa. Have you guys seen Death Note where... What's that part where she walks up the staircase? It's so nerdy of me to even say, but yeah. Damn. That was really depressing. And my heart goes out to all the victims. I mean, when was this? Somehow, you know, these types of things, it's like, as long as it was really long ago, then it's, you know, I can get over it. When was this? Sorry, guys. 1998. For someone old like me, that actually doesn't feel like that long ago. Sadly. Damn. Wow. That's really sad. I don't know what else to say other than that's really sad. I said all I need to say. My heart goes out. And thank you so much for watching. And yeah, I mean, you know, history, like German history, anybody's history is filled with all sorts of events, good and bad. So, you know, that's why I react to this type of thing, is because it's part of the history, you know? It's part of the history that shapes the culture and also shapes, you know, how the current day trains work in Germany and stuff like that. So that's interesting. I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.